Hello and welcome. My name is Neil Cooper. I'm a former shepherd of two large flocks of 1300 and a smaller flock of 700. Back in the 80s and 90s, I was shepherding, so not completely up to date, but many of the same things still count. Well, I had a question from somebody today about minerals I mentioned in one of my other videos. Vitamins and minerals is what you want to be giving them, and they've got to be sheep minerals, not cattle, because cattle minerals have copper. That can kill sheep. They're intolerant to it. So proper sheep minerals and vitamins, and yes, leave them out all the time. Now, they will pig them if they've not had them for quite a while or at all. They'll go there and they'll pig on them. So you've got to go out in the field and give them a bale of hay or feed them a few concentrates or something to distract them, and then secretly go and put your mineral bucket in the other corner, and somewhere, and maybe not too far from the water trough. In fact, not right by it, because if you put minerals right by a water trough, they've got salt in them, and they just go from the water trough backward and forward so some distance away from your water trough, and they just go there and browse on them after that, and they might still pig them a bit to start off with, because they haven't had any before, and then just leave them there all year round. They want minerals and vitamins all year round. Have it low enough so that the lambs, when they're 6 weeks old or so, can probably reach in. As I said, one of these 5-gallon containers with the front cut out and just a lip on the bottom, that you just put them in. That keeps the water off them, because once they get wet, they don't eat them. So they're powdery usually. They're the best ones. They're sort of, aniseed sort of colour, aren't they? And, just put them out there, and, they help themselves when they want them. And, once they've had that initial sort of stage of getting used to them, they just eat them when they want to. So you'll find you won't be using that much of it, but, it can make a great difference to their well-being. They can, be very skinny and unthrifty if they haven't had minerals and vitamins, because they've got a deficiency of some sort. So very, very important to always have clean water, minerals and vitamins out in the field all the time. So, what I wanted to talk about this week is, pre-lambing. Well, I missed my last video last week. I'm making one a bit late, but you need to be ordering your supplies for lambing and have them in. It's now the 3rd or 4th of March. A lot of people start in the south lambing about the 10th of March or so, some later. But, you need to think about what you need supplies-wise for your lambing yard. And, some of the things that you want is, if you're a very small flock, to go to your vet and say, can I have a 5 ml syringe full of penicillin? If I get a problem with one of my ewes, is maybe not a bad thing. Keep it in your fridge. If you're a fairly large flock, then, getting a bottle of penicillin, keeping it in the fridge. For the problematic ones you get, if you had a diabolical lambing, or, a ewe that had an abortion with a rotten lamb, obviously penicillin is needed, and, to stop peritonitis and whatever. And now, so, if you can get some antibiotics, because you can't afford to call the vet out for sheep, really, can you? Unless, not viably you can't, on a flock. So, most vets are fairly okay. If you can find an agricultural vet, even better. But, then, they do their best for you, what they can. So, pessaries is another thing to get, antiseptic pessaries that, if you have a ewe that has a bad lamb, you have to lamb her, and it's quite traumatic and hard and everything, then put a pessary inside her when you finish lambing her, when you've made sure she's had all of her lambs, put a pessary inside, and that just helps stop any infection and peritonitis. Now, to prevent infection getting in there in the first place, down to you, the shepherd or shepherdess, to make sure you go and thoroughly wash your hand before you lamb a ewe, because if you're walking around the lambing yard doing all sorts of different things, you've got quite a bit of germs and infection on your hand. So thoroughly washing your hand and arm up to your elbow with good antiseptic soap in a water, and then just rinse it off out of the water trough or whatever. Helps, but that's not always great fun when it's freezing cold out, is it? So what I always used to do was buy a box of these veterinary gloves like they use for cattle. You just put it on and it goes up here somewhere, you know what I mean? And that is perfectly clean, isn't it? And you're not taking infection into that sheep any more than you need to. Some people take an antiseptic wipe with them in a little box, carry one of these little horse boxes with a handle and a tray each side. They're very handy, so you put all your pessaries, lambing stuff, Lubricant as well, antiseptic lubricant, if you can get an antiseptic one, because some of them, it can help them having a lubricant, putting some lubricant inside them to get a lamb with a big head out through the vulva and stuff. So yeah, I mean, different things like that. So having a box to carry with you into the lambing yard, and to catch a ewe and drag it over to your box in the corner somewhere and lamb her there, and you've got everything at hand then. So as I say, put one of these veterinary gloves on. Now, some people carry antiseptic wipes with them. They just wipe off her vulva before they put their hand in to stop taking any more germs in there. So it depends how far you want to go. I mean, I just used a glove, which was helping protect you, because, you go in there and you lamb some ewes, their amniotic fluids can start really stinging your arm and making your arms tingle quite badly, and it's almost like you get a bit of a burn on your arm sometimes from it, because those quite strongly acid in them sometimes. So getting all your gear ready, as I say, some pessaries, some antiseptic lubricant preferably, or lubricant, which is handy. Now, another thing to buy which is really handy is one of these lammers, because when a lamb keeps putting its head back and in there, you're trying to get the legs up and the head keeps going back all the time. What you can do is you can buy a tube with a bit of wire this end to pull, and it's a tube with a V on the top, and the wire comes out one side and goes into the other side, and you can put that behind the lamb's ears, the wire, and the V goes up under their chin, and then you've got the head. You pull it reasonably tight onto them and keep it reasonably tight onto them, and you can then pull that head straight through the pelvic bone, the H bones, and you're in there. You've got the legs up, you've got the legs in your hand enough, you've got this around their neck, so you can pull both at the same time, and pop, out they come, right, hopefully. So that's another good thing to buy, one of those. They're quite cheap, so they're not bad. Now, about this time, obviously, you've got to watch out for ewes that have got twin lamb, which is pregnancy toxemia, and it's caused by a ewe that's got twins usually or more, and she's not eating properly. She's not going to the trough and eating properly. And what happens with pregnancy toxemia, twin lamb, is that there's a sudden breakdown of the ewe's body fats, and they have toxins in them. And because they break down that body fat so fast to feed those lambs, it causes pregnancy toxemia. And, they'll be dopey on the floor, and they won't be going up to eat with the other ewes. And you need to treat them. I mean, they will abort, basically, if you don't treat them. And what you need to do is get I can't remember what it is. It's been so long. It's ketones or something like that in a drench. It's a twin lamb drench anyway. And you just give them like a Schweppes bottle is the best thing to give it in, because usually it's like about 100ml, which a Schweppes bottle is 100ml. Go very careful, because they're really quite dopey. And the way to tell if they've got twin lamb is also to smell their breath, and it's very sweet, like pear drops. That's what it smells like, but you can't maybe always smell that. But, if they're dopey and not going up to eat, there's a good chance they've got twin lamb. So you dose them very slowly. Do it a little bit at a time, because if you try shoving that whole bottle down there, they just choke on it, because they're not even able to swallow very well. So just put it in the side of their mouth, tip a little bit in, take it out, and just give them their time to swallow it. It's going to take you a little bit of time, but it's better than choking them, isn't it? Then take them out of that pen and put them in an individual pen, maybe give them an hour before, and they come round a bit from it, and you'll be able to walk them down to an individual pen and give them free access to hay and just as much concentrate as they like. And that might just save them from aborting, and they might start eating. You might need to drench them twice a day with that to begin with, and then, once a day for a few days until they're eating properly again, and you might save the lambs, and otherwise they will definitely abort if you leave them in the big pen, because they won't be able to fight for their amount of food, and they need more than the rest anyway. So basically just give them free access to concentrate so they can eat as much as they like it. If they are pigging too much, then maybe cut it down a bit, but you need to be, looking at the flock during the night times as well this time, because, you have your early lambs coming. If it's the 10th of March you begin, it's about 3rd or 4th March now. So, they'll be starting to undergo that. You might have the odd abortion and problems. I'll talk about diseases and stuff like that more later on. So, it's being observant at the moment. If you can get your first 2 weeks lambing indoors, that's great. If you're outside and got bale lambing yard, then that's what you've got. But, you know, if you can split them up into first 2 weeks, second 2 weeks, third 2 weeks of lambing, then that's great, you know, but, you know, be observant, you know, get whatever you need for yourself as well, you know, and as I say, you know, it's just about going about it. And, you know, you can get used with retained afterbirth after the odd one, and, you know, you can try after a couple of days gently tugging it, but it generally doesn't come away. And, you know, you just got to give them a shot of penicillin, really. I mean, if it's within, you notice it within a few hours of lambing, then put a pessary in there, because there'll still be enough room to get a pessary in there. You know, that's all you can really do for it. Usually it come away on its own in the end. Sometimes it can be a few weeks before it does. Obviously, you've got to keep your eye on them. It can go gangrenous and stuff like that, so you might need more penicillin at some point. Just that's all you can do. Now, I'll talk about things to do with lambing ewes, and, you know, different things with the lambs that you get go wrong in the next video next weekend. So for now, that's going to do. And, you know, get whatever you feel you need to have. And I mean, having a bit of milk powder that you can make up to feed the lambs is not a bad thing, if, you know, right at the beginning, but other things too, you know. You know, you can always find a ewe you can generally get some milk off to feed another lamb anyway. So a hot box is a good thing to have as well. I mean, they just have fans, and you've got watch lambs in those. They're like incubator type things to, you know, for lambs that have got hypothermia and stuff, putting them in there for an hour and they're back to normal. But they need feeding. I mean, it's best maybe to leave them for like half an hour before you feed them, because, you know, they can bring it back up and drown on it, basically. So these feeders is another thing to go get for lambing. A stomach feeder. Now, you've got to know how to put the thing in right, because your bottle feeding, it takes you a long time. Maybe you haven't got the time. So one of these stomach feeders, and I don't suggest getting the injection type, or if you do, just take the syringe out of it, because you're pushing that down in, and if it does happen to be down on their lungs, you're going to push all that fluid in their lungs. So it's careful when you use these tubes. They're just a rubber tube about so long, you know, and you just feed it in the lamb's mouth, and the ear starts sort of like he's almost trying to suck it, and then just gently push it, and it'll go down into his stomach. If you force it too much, you can push that down into the lungs. If it goes down into the lungs, you'll find after so much of it doesn't really want to go very easily. So you've got it in their lungs, and you take it back out, and, you know, let them try to swallow it themselves. So hold their head, you know, fairly level, so it's straight, and just feed it into their mouth. And, you know, I recommend feeding all triplets with a stomach feeder, because they have problems, you know. So, and anything that has a traumatic lambing, feed it with that feeder also, because they quite often have swollen heads or feel very weak, and, you know, they lay around and get hypothermia. So, you know, I always fed every group of triplets with a stomach feeder without fail. I milked the ewe and got the stomach feeder out, and, you know, gave them all about 50 to 100 ml of, you know, depending on the size of the lamb, of the ewe's milk, colostrum, you know. And, you know, if she's got very thick colostrum and doesn't want to go down it very easily, then maybe add some milk powder to it or something, you know, some ready mix. But, you know, yeah, you know, so it's just getting them going. Thrifty, isn't it? And, you know, so, you know, stomach feeders are great, you know, and they're very quick. It only takes a few minutes, and a lot of people don't agree with it, but, you know, it's time saving, isn't it? Sometimes you don't have time to sit there and bottle feed a lamb. It would be great if you did. So if you can, and you do have the time, that's fine. Bottle feed it. But, yeah, you know, so it's just gently easing that down their throat until it gets, and just put some slippery gel on it, you know, some lubricant on it, or just wet it a bit before you put it down there, because a dry bit of rubber is not going to go down that easily, you know. And, you know, you have about that much of it still out of the lamb's mouth, the rubber tube, and then you just then you can either pinch the tube, put it down there, or you put the milk powder in afterwards. But if you're feeding that and you see bubbles starting to come back up out of it, take it out straight away, because you've got it in their lungs. Okay, anyway, I'm going to leave that for now. I'll talk to you next week. I'll talk about some of the lambing problems, some of the problems you have with the lambs. Anyway, thanks for watching. Cheers. Neil.